Hey there, Lowell here with GamerGuides.com, and I have another Wuchang Fallen Feathers build for you today. This time around we're looking at the build GamerGuide Senior Editor Ben Chard and myself piloted through the game. An agile, one-handed sword caster with a fire magic focus that I'm calling the Fire Ninja. Ben and I took different approaches to this build, but the core of it is largely the same. Grab Biding Time from the one-handed skill tree to passively generate Skyborn Might every 30 seconds when wielding a one-handed sword. Then grab the Infernal Flames spell, which we have dubbed Fiery Face, in the village near Shu Sanctum, and then proceed to spam it into the face of every boss in the game. The basic light attack combo with the one-handed sword is quite terrible with a bit too much animation, and the charged heavy attack is even worse. However, the dash attack combo works quite well for taking out weaker enemies that you aren't casting Fiery Face at, because you can kind of chain into it over and over, and dash out of it if you need to. Of course, this Fire Ninja build is a bit more complicated than that, so let's take a look at the skills, weapons, benedictions, pendants, and temperance loadout you'll want to get this build off the ground for the early and mid game. First things first, you'll want the aforementioned Biding Time from the one-handed skill tree, and then you're going to want to grab a bunch of magic nodes to increase the damage you deal with magic spells. Remember, some magic nodes allow you to pump more than one stack of red mercury into it, and we're ignoring feather nodes whenever we can as we won't be using any feather spells. I also did not grab the Wind Force skill in the one-handed skill tree to avoid triggering charged heavy attacks. It's better as a poke option, as the charged heavy attack will lock you into a long animation and eat your Skyborn Might that you're better off saving for spells. If you're leaning toward using the one-handed sword as a complementary weapon for something like the longsword, however, it's nice to have Wind Force as an option as you can set enemies up to obliterate them with both weapons. You can ignore the one-handed discipline skills for the most part. That said, I did find the Slicing Zephyr skill, with its variant, quite useful against fast enemies as it can clash against their attacks, despite it not saying so in the tooltips, and send them flying so you can back off and get some spells in, but it's by no means a priority. Instead, aim for picking up the magic nodes and the swift blade nodes to upgrade your overall attack power with one-handed swords. While doing so, you won't want to skip out on the nodes in the elusive tree that increase the amount of mana potions you have and the potency of them. More importantly, you'll get the first Skyborn Call node that increases the amount of Skyborn Might you can have by 2. The next one, which raises it to a maximum of 5, you can save for later. Another node of note is the Alacrity node, which will grant Skyborn Might with certain spells if cast at the right moment. This doesn't work with Infernal Flames, however, but it does work with the Burning Flame spell that is situationally powerful and several other spells that you might use. Just below the Alacrity node is the Fiery Embers node, which increases the burn buildup of spells. Definitely grab this one. If you plan on using a lot of the Temperance mechanic, which you should and I regret neglecting, make sure to scroll down here and grab the Bone Needle magic node and equip it in the Temperance menu to give your spells a nice little buff when used. And don't forget to grab the extra Temperance charges from this side of the skill tree either. I recommend snaking into the Dual Blades tree to grab the abundance of Endurance and Vitality nodes there, including a big +5 node right about here. This will ensure you have the stamina required to keep dodging and building Skyborn Might against the toughest bosses and survive some hits. So let's talk about weapons. The best weapon for this build is an easy one, the Astral Blade, which you'll get after defeating Blightweaver at the bottom of the Mercury Workshop in Chapter 1. It has the best magic scaling of all non-DLC weapons. Its skill, Awakening Seal, cuts the 30-second wait time for one stack of Skyborn Might to 15 seconds, which means you'll be able to spam Fiery Face even more effectively. As for benedictions to equip, there's a lot of late game benedictions that will help you in the final chapters of Wuchang. However, for the early and mid game you'll want Skyborn Magic equipped, which you can find in your Light Zen Temple in Chapter 1. It increases your spell damage when you gain Skyborn Might. In Cloudspire Palace, you can find Burning Might, which increases the damage you deal if an enemy nearby suffers from a burn. This is near the Palace Shrine and down a side path. If you find yourself using a lot of Alacrity spells, Lasting Alacrity found in Tang Palace isn't a terrible idea if you successfully solve the riddle door there. It'll make you much harder to hit when casting Alacrity spells. For Jade Pendants, there's quite a few different options. The Twin Infant Pendant is a good choice to keep your stamina topped up as you dodge enemy attacks. It's found at the very bottom of the Mercury Workshop before you fight the boss. Likewise, the Dragonfish Pendant is great for increasing maximum stamina until you reach Chapter 4 and can replace it with a magic buffing pendant. The Dragonfish is found in the shaft near Honglan's cell. You have to use the Examine emote to find it. Last, I often went with the Dracolich Pendant against bosses as it negates powerful flinch effects. A ton of bosses in this game have some kind of screech that will stun you. You will find this in the Mercury Workshop after you fall down from this path here. Do note that plenty of pendants increase fire weapon attack damage like the Demon Pendant. These do not affect the damage output of your fire spells and therefore aren't recommended for my build, but if you plan on using a different weapon type in conjunction with the one-handed sword, they are much more useful. Ben has more late game benediction and pendant recommendations in his written guide for this build, which I've linked in the description below. So the typical playstyle for this build against bosses is to learn when to dodge and find a safe opening to cast Infernal Flames or another spell like Burning Flames. While other spells like Vorpal Blade aren't bad either, Infernal Flames pretty much carries through to the end of the game because it only requires 2 Skyborn Might and builds burn really quickly. Not only does burn cause chip damage over time, enemies also take more damage from more fiery faces that you throw at them to whittle down their health bar even quicker. Really, the most important thing here is learning when it's safe to cast after certain attack animations and keeping your distance. More mobile enemies are a bit tougher because they can dodge the slow-moving Infernal Flames, but that's where other spells like Burning Flames might work better. Just make sure they're a magic spell and not a feathering spell. I do have to mention the Ethereal Form spell that you find in Chapter 3 that allows you to evade an attack automatically and gain Skyborn Might. This doesn't change the playstyle too much, but it gives you a great way to dodge hard to dodge attacks. You do get a pretty good lightning spell called, and I'll try to pronounce this as best I can, Echo of Zhang Xingzong, after defeating its namesake at the end of Chapter 3. But even then, Fiery Face remains king in most situations. Having a high stamina stat from taking the endurance nodes from the Dual Blades tree means you'll always have stamina to dodge and build Skyborn Might, waiting for an opportunity to strike. As for regular enemies, Fiery Face does melt them, but so too does your one-handed sword dash combo that you can keep repeating until they're dead. And yeah, that's about all you need to know from what I've dubbed the Fire Ninja build in Wuchang Fallen Feathers. Check out Ben's written guide for a lot more detail and a bit of a different take. And as always, like and subscribe so we can continue on our quest to fulfill all your gaming needs here at Gamer Guides.